Hey everyone, it's Jonathan here, founder of Driving Academy, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing the different regions of this country and how they differ when it comes to freight volumes, right? So the main thing is going to be, is all regions in this country created equal? And I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. No, absolutely not. There's going to be some parts of the country that are better at freight than other parts. And at the end of this video, you're going to have a good understanding of where you can potentially make the most amount of money in trucking as a whole. So when you have this information, why would it be beneficial for you? If you're an owner operator, your job is to kind of pick which routes you want to go with. And if you have a good understanding of which routes around the country that you want to go for, you can actually make it a lot easier for you to be successful in this industry itself. Let's talk about the first region on our list, which is going to be the good old Midwest region. So Midwest, what are we talking about here? We're talking about states like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, and big cities like Detroit and Chicago. Right? So that is what we're going to call the Midwest. Now, what is the Midwest famous for when it comes to trucking as a whole? Midwest is really strong in their manufacturing plant. So when you hear about Chicago, maybe you know about the meat industry there. It's super big on that, right? When you hear about Michigan or Detroit, you're going to hear about cars. So the cool thing about that part of the country, land is pretty cheap, which means that these manufacturing plants were able to buy up a lot of land, build on it relatively cheap, and they're able to start producing a lot of different items there, and also the agriculture. There's going to be a whole lot of farmland out there. This is the breadbasket for a lot of people in the country itself, and that is the super important thing. So when you understand that, a lot of things are being made there, which is an amazing thing, which means that there's always loads coming out of there. The other thing that you do have to understand is because it is the Midwest, any cross-country travel, a lot of that stuff, especially towards the north, is going to be crossing through there. So it's a very good corridor to really understand, because anytime you want to go from the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa, most likely you're going to be traveling through the Midwest as long as you're not staying in the South side. So when you really understand, the pros is the manufacturing is there a lot, which means that there's always going to be work coming out of the Midwest. The cons are, where does that work actually go to? Because it isn't in the Midwest itself, there is going to be a good amount of local work available because you're going from warehouse to warehouse. Hey, I need them added with this product in this warehouse, and then I can kind of build out this plant or whatever it is. But the other con is going to be the manufacturing that goes all over the country. So there's going to be a whole lot of over-the-road and regional routes available coming out of the Midwest. And it might be a great middle point, especially if you're going from West Coast to East Coast itself. So now let's talk about the Southern region. Now, the Southern region, the two biggest contenders and players there are going to be Florida and Texas. So what is the Southern region known for? Florida specifically, everyone knows Florida for their oranges, right? They have a big farming population down there in Florida, but that is a very seasonal route when it comes to actual trucking itself, because you're not going to be growing watermelons all year round in Florida. What is all year round that's going to give you a nice steady income? In Florida specifically, it's going to be the ports. So there's a lot of big ports getting built, and a lot of current ports that are there now that are actually producing a whole lot of activity when it comes to trucking and freight itself. So if you're somebody who likes the actual heat and you like the kind of humidity out there, Florida might be a great home base for you because of the ports itself. You have a lot of different flexibility. The port work that you're going to see in Florida is going to give you access to kind of find a local job, also regional, which means you're going to all neighboring states, and potentially over the road as well coming out of those ports. The other big contender in the South is going to be Texas. Now, Texas' biggest export is going to be oil. There's a lot of people say Texas is so big it's like its own country, and when it comes to the actual transportation industry, that's going to be huge for them. The other thing that Texas has going for it, including Florida, is the fact that they have zero state income tax, which means a lot of people are moving to those two states itself, and that means a lot more things have to be built. Now, as the economy grows in any state or in any part of the country, a lot more trucking jobs are going to be needed because, like we talked about earlier, in order to buy something at the store, a truck driver has to get paid to transport that product from point A to point B. So it sounds super simple. So those are two solid states itself. Now, like the Midwest itself, Texas has one benefit, which is going to be it's a major corridor for people crossing the country. Because it is so big, a lot of truckers actually have to drive through Texas to get to where they got to go. And they've kind of made it easy with a lot of big hubs around there where they have places like Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and things like that, where now you can make multiple stops across Texas, and maybe you can do something called like a drop and hook, where you're working for a company, you're picking up a trailer in point A, you're dropping off the trailer, and then you're going to take it down to point B itself. But these are going to be good centralized areas, because from here, you can pretty much go anywhere in the country itself. So maybe calling Texas your home base as a trucker might be great, because now you're pretty much halfway through the country and you can pretty much decide which kind of money routes that you want to take, or you can be sufficient and make a whole lot of money in the oil industry for Texas, and that's not looking like it's going to dry up anytime soon. Let's go to the West Coast. I'm talking to you, California. That's right. So California is probably the biggest state in the West Coast, and when my team actually researched it, the California economy as a whole is the 5th largest economy in the entire world. We're not talking about the 5th largest economy in the country, we're talking about in the entire world, which means that there's only 4 countries that have a bigger economy than California. Every other country has a smaller economy than California. So when you really think about that, it becomes really its own country. So just being California itself, it has a whole lot of movement going on just in trucking as a whole. Because like we talked about, the higher the economy, the more you're going to need trucking, because you're going to need to transport things from point A to point B. What specifically in California is actually helping this economy grow, and what specifically in California is so good for trucking, that's going to be, they actually have the 2 largest ports in the entire world itself are based in California. Because they're in the West Coast, they're the closest to Asia, and a lot of the stuff that we already know is made in China, made in Asia, and all that stuff has to get onto a container ship, go through those 2 big ports in California, and then from there make it around the country itself. So anything that you see made in China probably came from the California ports, which means the truck drivers in California were the ones benefiting from all of that. One of the benefits of having a trucking home base in California is going to be the amount of activity that's always happening, and one of the downsides of California is going to be its regulations. California is one of the highest regulated states in the country currently, and for truck drivers, you have to watch things like emissions. You can't be standing idle for too long, and it can make things a lot more complicated. Plus, the taxes in California are tremendously high compared to other states itself. So yes, you can potentially make more money, you can be more stable, but you might have to be spending more money on taxes. So it's kind of going to be a balance. So definitely you want to take that into account before you choose which is going to be your home base. All right. Now, the one thing that's not showing a lot of love is going to be the Northeast. So places like here in New Jersey, New York, these places are not usually the best places when it comes to calling at your home base. And let me tell you why. New Jersey, New York, land is super expensive here, which means manufacturing compared to other parts of the country is down. But the one thing that truck drivers cannot get away from is a lot of things actually get brought here to New Jersey, New York. Because we are consumer states over here, we don't really make as much things as other parts of the country. So like we talked about in the Midwest, they're making a whole lot of stuff there. Who do you think's purchasing all that stuff? The Northeast and the East Coast. So a lot of the routes coming from Midwest to the Northeast is going to be solid money coming in, because there's a whole lot of activity happening, right? And this all comes down to supply and demand. Now, the problem is you can actually charge higher pricing going from the Midwest to the Northeast because of that supply and demand. Once you're actually in the Northeast coming back out, because there's not a lot of manufacturing here, that's going to mean there's going to be less supply, less activity actually happening, right, when it comes to transporting stuff. And because there's all these drivers coming into New Jersey and New York, because they actually have a load to drop off here, it's going to be very hard for them to take a load coming out. So one of the things that you do have to understand is if you are in the Northeast, going out is probably not the best way to make money. But when you're coming back to this area, that's where you can actually make a boatload of money itself. You can charge higher rates and everything like that, simply because a lot of people don't really want to come into the Northeast itself. So long story short, we kind of broken the country into a few different stages. Every single stage out there has the ability for you to make money and change the trajectory of your entire life. So the one thing that you do have to understand is nationwide, there's about an 80,000 driver shortage currently, which means if you're looking for a new career, if you're kind of scared about where this economy is going, you don't really know what's going on, I definitely invite you to get yourself a CDL license, because it's going to be one of the best decisions that you've ever made in your entire life. All you got to do is pretty simple. It's a two-step process. Step number 1, pass a few different written tests to get yourself a CDL permit. Step number 2, pass a 2.5-hour-long road test to get your actual license. And the cool thing is, we'll invite you to come to the best CDL school in the country, and we'll be able to help you out with all of that. All you gotta do is check out our website, cdldrivingacademy.com. Thanks. Have a great day. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you want to get your CDL license, you know where to go. Check out our website, cdldrivingacademy.com, right over there. And if you like this video, you'll definitely like this video right over here. So make sure you check that out. But before anything else, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you soon.